and here we are. Welcome everyone, and a very good evening here at P3 for 1UP Racing, where today we are in Season 24, Round 5 for the ERT Japan race at the Suzuka International Racing Course. My name is Mitsuka, I'll be your host for tonight, and joined in the commentary box with me is Ace. Welcome!
Hello everyone, hopefully tonight will be a good one after a week break. Everyone, thankfully, getting some heat across the week in general, especially if you're over in the UK with I'm pretty sure highest degrees that we ever got this year so far. But it's still a bit hot today. We've seen some drivers had to pull out because of the heat. Pretty sure Rudy said it was like 36 degrees in his room.
Yeah, indeed, Rudy and Sharky will be pulling out because of the temperatures here in the Netherlands as well. Way too hot, about 35 degrees locally where I'm living. So it is indeed quite intense. Now, we've had a 1 week break, as you mentioned, so let's quickly go over to the calendar to take you through the races that we have seen before and what is in stock in the coming weeks. So there we have it. There is our calendar. Can you take us through, Ace?
Yes, if you give me 1 second, I can pull it back up. I had it up, but I got rid of it. But anyway, so we go to Japan tonight, Suzuka circuit, formerly made, if I can remember, in spite of Suzuki, if I can remember correctly. I cannot remember the exact details of that, but I'm pretty sure it was Honda who made it. But the name Suzuka, which would be Suzuki if you think about it. But anyway, we go to Las Vegas next week, a new circuit, or the second new circuit here for season 23. Then it's Portimao for round 7, and then it's Spa for round 8. Then another week break. We'll go to Barcelona, the Catalonia, and then we go to Singapore, Marina Bay, Silverstone, and then one more week break, and then we'll head to Coda for a season finale. Not normally a place to have a season finale, but an overall good one.
That is very true. Now, of course, we have seen, I think there's only one driver in the past that's got his world title there, that being Lewis Hamilton a couple of years ago. But perhaps we will see one of our drivers crowned as a champion at that date. But before we're going to take you through the current standings, let's first go over the tracks that we have already covered. So we had round 1 in Qatar. A great race at Imola with the sprint weekend we've had there. And then we've had Hungary, and then 2 weeks ago we were racing in Brazil. And after all those races, it's starting to look like we're going to have a two-way fight for the title. That being between Funky and Rachman, or Winman, or whatever he changed his name to. It's now Rachman again, so I guess we'll call him Rachman.
Yeah. Back to Rachman, was a bottleman, but you know what I mean. Also, I don't know if he's in the stream, but if he is, Twan does have a very good, but hope you've had a very good birthday so far, and hopefully tonight will make it even better. We see, if I'm right, you're racing as well. I have not seen you pull out, so birthday win in store?
It would be very cool. He's asking for an invite, so I guess he will definitely be joining us. If we look at the standings, Trunders is currently situated in spot 18 with currently 6 points in total. Most of these picked up with a 7th place race in our round 4, or well, round 3 technically, so that was in Hungary. If we look at the top of the standings, I already mentioned the main battle is between Funky and Rachman. Funky currently sitting on top of the league with 84 points, so far only scoring podiums with a first place in the main race at Imola, 3rd place in Hungary, and a race win last time around. But also Rachman being very consistent with a 3rd, a 1st, then 5th in the main race at Imola, a 1st in Hungary, and then last race a 2nd place. And yeah, Funky 84 points, Rachman 74 points, and after that Truth comes in with 40 points, so it's already quite a substantial gap there. But we definitely shouldn't count out the other drivers. Fozzie Bear, for example, currently in 6th position, having a pretty good run with a 4th place in Hungary and a 3rd place in Brazil, and he's currently at 28 points, same points as Jamie.
I don't know if you did hear me during that, but Fuzzy Bear isn't actually here tonight. He's pulled out.
Okay.
Reason unknown currently, but he did pull out eventually. I've gone on to the SimGrid, and in the admin section of it, there's 5 withdrawals. 3 are not from RT, but the 2 that are done has been Fuzzy Bear and Rudy currently.
Okay. And yeah, we've seen that Sharky also said that he was going to pull out, so we'll probably see 17 drivers on the grid then tonight. Also important to note is that one of our drivers has taken the engine swap. That would be Jess. So Jess will not be participating in qualifying and start from the back of the grid. So that is important for you all to know. Now we've covered that. Now you know what's in stock in the coming weeks, what has happened, and what the standings are. I think it's more than fair to take you through this race, because today we are racing at Suzuka. What can you tell us about
definitely. I think it is actually the current only figure 8 circuit in the world. I'm not too sure. I do not quote me on that because I do not think I'm right. But another thing that I would like to point out, it was meant to have 4 crossovers. You know the way in, I want to say, Sector 3 and Sector 2, it's got that crossover. It was meant to have 4 of them.
That is very interesting.
But then, if they wanted it to be FAA Grade 1, or Grade A, or whatever it's called, I can't remember exactly, then they had to change it to be only 1. Some of the other stats for Suzuka, at least, it's 5.807 kilometers, 3.608 miles. I can't talk honestly. 27 laps tonight with a short qualifying of 18 minutes. It has 18 turns with 8 to the left and 10 to the right of the third figure 8 circuit, with only 1 DRS zone being the main straight, with I'm pretty sure the detection point is just before the Casio triangle. So they need to be careful if they're going to go for moving there to come off the brakes a little bit so they can hang on to the DRS. Lap record held by Lewis Hamilton set in 2019 with a 130.983 with a pit loss of roughly 22 seconds.
Alright, very good. Yeah, we've of course seen some very iconic races here at the Suzuka International Racing Course. Interesting story about how the track came to be. Honda did indeed want to have their own track. So they decided to call a Dutchman and like, yo, can you design a track for it? Well, they actually sent him a letter. Can you come to Japan to design a track for us? That was the end of it. And the guy flew over to Japan, and well, the rest is history. And that is why we have the track that we now know as Suzuka, with the iconic S-curves, and of course the 130R that we'll be seeing the drivers fly through later on. First sector, very technical, the S-curves. This is where you need to maintain your flow, and if you can keep that together, then you're definitely going to be able to pull out one of the fast lap times and the hard braking zone that we will see into the Casio triangle. Also Spoon, turns 13 and 14, got to be a bit careful there not to spin out there. But the main overtaking points, perhaps up ahead into the 130R. It's possible nowadays into the Casio triangle, and turn 1, although it is very risky, that is another opportunity to overtake, as well as into turn 11, which is the hairpin. Other than that, will not be too easy to overtake, but we've seen overtakes go wrong in the past as well. At the Casio triangle, the collisions between Senna and Prost in 1989, and of course the turn 1 lap 1 incident in 1990. Let's also not forget that this is a race where you can come and almost do a last to first sort of challenge, as we've seen Kimi Räikkönen do in 2005 when he came out to win it from 17th with the last lap overtake on the outside of turn 1. So it's a very interesting track to watch. One of the more iconic laps, and as the drivers have already mentioned, it's not a great track for the pad drivers, and I can imagine the heat tonight is not going to help either.
Oh, I mean, I haven't touched my controllers all day, but my hands are already starting to get sweaty, just to say the least. So it's going to be a tough one, nonetheless, to at least be able to grip onto a controller because of the heat. But hopefully we don't have crashes tonight. That's the only real thing I'm hoping for. But before we do get into the session, as we are loading in now, if you can quickly pull up the sponsors, I will take us through them.
That sounds good. Let's do it.
So anyway, sponsors that we have here in One Hub Racing: Next Level Racing, sponsoring the league by providing 3 prizes. One being well, there's 2 seats and there's a wheel stand. The first one goes to one of the champions, second goes to the second or third place drivers, and then every driver will have a chance to win a Next Level Racing 2.0 wheel stand. It's pretty good, I won't lie. But then Pure Sim Gear, they will provide a pair of gloves or socks to the driver who's the most combined fastest laps and poles. I don't think that's lap time, I think that's actually like number of them. If I would need to clarify that with some of the admins. But then it's Aztec Sim Sports sponsoring the league by providing 2 prizes. The shortest combined qualifying time will win a set of sim racing boots. That doesn't mean you get all the poles in a season. That just means you're consistent with your lap times, and you're always at the top of, well, the qualifying session at least. And then the winner of the ERT going gets Tougher Wood will win an Aztec Sim Sport t-shirt and cap with Mr. Shitbox as well. I said shirt, not, I didn't swear. Hopefully that did not come out wrong because it would have sounded very bad. They sponsor us by providing one of their boxes to the winner of Cam's driver rankings. Speaking of those rankings, if I'm right, we currently have, I want to say we have, I don't know, I'm pretty sure we have 6 drivers currently in them. 6 drivers in the top 20.
And I believe Funky tops the sheets at the moment, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does currently. But then our partners are Vespertine, sponsoring our apparel, ERT, Elite Racing Team with the Going Against Tougher Wood and then League Trophies, and then SimGrid, where we power the entire season. And we're just, it's so much easier than having to sort it all out in the Discord with attendance and everything, because if you can't race one week, you withdraw on the website and it will notify the admins, which makes it really nice. But we're in the qualifying now, and I think the first one out, it's an Avatari. Which Avatari is it though? Is it Hooky or is it John? It is actually Hooky. Recently joining ERT, he was with RDR previously. He became one of the owners as our P2 commentator actually. Mike, he used to own it. I think he did still own it at the time. Had to unfortunately step down a little bit, which then gave Colin, a P1 driver, and then Hooky as well, the ownership, which they then left and gave it back to Mike. But then RDR recently closed. And then, well, Hooky joined the ERT, and I'm pretty sure he's the only ERT driver, at least, in the P3 tier. But now that means they've got ERT drivers in all 3 tiers.
Well, that is very nice to see, and of course, Hooky, congratulations for you to be picked up by the ERT racing team. I believe this happened just around our last race, so we weren't able to cover that before. The congratulations come into play nonetheless. We've seen Jess retire. Just to clarify that once more, Jess has taken the engine penalty, the engine swap, so that means that she had to do 1 lap to at least get some engine wear in, and then retire from the session because she'll have to start from the back of the grid. We will see 16 drivers in total. It turns out that King, I believe, has pulled out, the second Ferrari driver. Nick let us know of that. So we'll be having 16 drivers in total participating tonight, with 15 be doing their flying laps, as we're just watching Hookie come across the start-finish line and set the first lap of tonight, which is going to be a 1:29.0. So I'll be looking for some 1:28s, I think, later on. Perhaps low ones too.
Yeah. I'd maybe even go 27.9 as a pole lap time. But you never know. These drivers are always very consistent in their lap times. Hopefully we get a close qualifying session like we normally do. But I have just gone on to the ERT Twitter very quickly. Hookie got announced last Monday, i.e. September the 4th. It would have been a day after our last race, but we had a break week.
Okay, that's good to know. And then we now see Shelby Crom across the line, currently in 3rd position, 1:29.0, where we had Nick just set the fastest lap time with a 1:28.994, so we're just breaking into the 1:28s. We saw Rachman aborted their lap after a slight mistake in the Suzuka S's, so he'll be going for a lap later on. And so far, our championship leader, Funky, is still in the pits, but I think we have a couple of more drivers out. For example, Giggle, who has now set the fastest lap time by quite a margin of 1:28.3. That should be a tough one to beat.
Yeah, for a banker lap, that is not bad at all. I remember last season, this race especially, it was not a good race in general for him. I'm pretty sure he eventually had DNF the race, but to see him getting up there again on well, provisional pole at least of everyone's set lap time so far, it's really nice to see.
In the meantime, we are on board with Kington on their first flying lap. He's now approaching the 130R. A couple of cars are in front of him, but he should not have any issues with them heading into the Casio Triangle. They do come quite close, but should not be close enough to be of any hindrance to him. Now coming through the final corner, and he's going to set his first lap time at a 1:30.0. So being quite conservative so far, but I believe in the first sector is already down a couple of tenths on our quicker drivers. So there is still some time to make up in the S's here for sure, as we now see Jamie and Funky go for their highlights.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully we do see some more lap times getting set. Obviously we should only have 15 being set tonight, with just having it's really a qualifying ban if you think about it, because it's an engine penalty, but we always call it as just an engine penalty, which it is, but in reality it's just a qualifying ban to serve. But starting at the back will hopefully mean staying out of trouble in towards turn 1 at least.
That is for sure, and just to clarify as well, keep in mind that all the drivers have to take at least one engine swap throughout the season, so this is not something uncommon that we're going to see. And as well, in the race, there is a 2 mandatory pit stop, so we will see 2 pit stops at minimum, and that also means that over the course of the 27 laps I believe, yeah, we'll see at least 2 pit stops from the drivers. Perhaps with safety cars we might even see an additional one. Now Funky is making his way through the S's and almost rounding off that first sector. Let's see if he can come close to almost losing it there, coming out of the Dunlop curve. And his first sector time is a 1:31.8, so that is a little bit off the pace for the time being, it looks like. But I think he might be able to collect himself. We see Rachman slotting into second, a little bit out of nowhere, but he's still 2 tenths shy of the fastest lap time set by Giggle.
Yeah, currently set by Giggle, but The real question is, are we going to see faster lap times? Or could a banker even be the best?
We'll have to see how that is going to work out, because a 128.3 is a really, really good first lap, as we saw Funky make another mistake coming out of the spoon curve. So definitely not a flawless run, but he has not picked up any track limits, so he will at least complete this first lap and set his banker lap time right here, right now. And he does that with a 128.7, which isn't too shabby at all, as he's currently slotting into thirds, just one spot behind Rachman.
Yeah. We've got yellow flags for some reason. I want to say it was an Alpine, but I'm not. No, it's actually, I think it's a Haas. Is that Funky? Has he gone out of fuel? I think he has. But I'm just keeping an eye on Oles. He's unfortunately invalidated his lap in the center in the S's. I'll be honest, it is one of the hardest places for a controller player or a power player, whatever you want to call them. Because it's so, we need to get your steering very precise.
In the meantime, Jamie pulling over to the side, picking up an invalidation there at the Casio triangle. Just went a little bit wide and not able to complete this lap. Although it did look like he set a purple sector, at least we saw so in the minimap sector 2. I'm not sure if that was just his personal best or if it was an all-round fastest lap time, because I think comparing the lap time to Funky, what we just saw earlier on, it was about a tenth shy. So he was on course for a P4 or P5. So Jamie definitely having some pace here to go for some runs later on, but being so low on fuel already means that he will have to come in and go for his lap later on. And in the meantime, we see some more drivers out with those Ols, Trunders and Matthias. Out to do their laps, and they have come out, and we have Giacomondo and Giggle on another out lap. Most of our drivers are currently out on track, apart from Doc Shelby and Rachman. Rachman still sitting at a comfortable second place.
Yeah, Trunder's just finished his lap, racing on his birthday. It's what you call dedication to the league, especially. But it's currently at 29.741 for him, putting him P10 out of 12 drivers who have currently set lap times. Will he be able to repeat what I did last year by any chance? I raced a day before my birthday, I'm gonna win. I then raced on my birthday twice. The first race I got, I think it was a P5, and then the second race I won.
Might be that
is it
on your
possible
birthday you
for
have
him?
wins. Could be possible. Could be for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's more of a, I'd call it a birthday present. Oh no.
Well, it would
If
be
it
more
happens
than
for
a
him,
welcome birthday present indeed, as we just see Matthias coming around the Casio triangle and finishing off his lap. And with that, all the drivers have at least made an attempt for their lap, and Matthias comes in with a 129.1. We saw Hookie improve earlier on, as well as John. Hookie with a 128.7 and John with a 128.8. And Truth, indeed, as you mentioned, also improved, currently in second place with a 128.5. And I think, seeing how the drivers are improving, I don't think Giggle's lap time of a 128.3 is going to stand. We are now also on board with Giggle, just gone through the hairpin, was a little bit quicker than his previous lap time, as he's now making his way through Spoon. Of course, after Spoon, just before the 130R, is our second gauge, which is the end of Sector 2 and the start of Sector 3. Spoon went very, very smoothly there, as he now comes around the back stretch, the long straight, leading up to the 130R. And so far, he's almost a tenth quicker than his previous lap time, so he's on for a very low 128.3. He does manage to nail the Casio triangle here, gets a very good entry, and this is about as good as you can take it. Now make sure to take it a little bit close. Does leave a little bit of space there and goes just a tad quicker at 128.307. So far, the fastest lap time by about 2 tenths.
Yeah, he already had that though.
And Giacomundo is currently also flying. It's about 6/10 quicker than his previous lap, and he's only passed Sector 1 so far. So I wonder how good this lap is going to be, as he's now going to get to the end of Sector 2. He's now only a 10th quicker, so it seems like he has lost quite a bit of time. But if I look at his ERS, the ERS has pretty much depleted as well. So not sure if that was a mistake in Sector 2, or if he is going to complete his lap. He is going to complete his lap, and with that will come round in a 1:29.1, so still a little bit quicker, but it seems like there is more in the tank for him. As in the meantime, we are going to go on board with Rachman, who is now en route. Well, not en route. He has aborted his fast lap time as well, so it looks like the S curves are proving difficult for him.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's even hard for wheel players. Oh, wheel. It's not the best at all, especially if you're running. You may be running 40C, but it's still pretty hard to get your steering perfect, as well as your inputs. So, all I'm gonna hope is there's no crashes there.
Well, let's hope we don't see too many crashes indeed, as Jamie has now just started their flying lap. Rachman and Giacomundo, I don't believe, are on a fast lap for the time being. Jamie makes his way through the famous Suzuka S's, now coming through the Dunlop curve, heading towards Degner at the end of Sector 1, currently at a 31.7, which is quite a good first sector, and a little bit quicker than we saw Funky do, about 2/10 quicker than he did on his fastest run. So it looks like Jamie might be on for a top 3 classification if he can make this lap stick. We saw previously he had a very good second sector. It was that he just missed his braking point up the Casio triangle earlier on. Let's see what he can do when he heads into Spoon. Making a lot of entry speed there. The exit here is super important. It doesn't look like he is making too many mistakes here either. Taking a very short line, trying to cover as little meters, little distance as possible. Now at a 112.1, so a little bit off of Funky's time. The second sector this time not being the greatest. And again, overshoots a little bit the Casio triangle. It's proving to be very difficult for him. But this time does not invalidate and will be able to get a lap on the board. But in the end, a 129.8 is not the ideal lap that you're looking for, currently slotting him in P13.
It may not be an ideal lap, but it's a lap nonetheless. So
you do need a lap on the board, otherwise you are not going to end up on top. And it's still ahead of some of our drivers, but it looks like the drivers are who are in control are really struggling with the final few corners here.
Yeah, a controller track is normally one like Bahrain, but Japan overall, I'm nearly say it's a wheel track.
We're currently looking around.
Giacomundo's retired.
Giacomundo has retired indeed, as you mentioned. Currently checking if there are any drivers on a fast lap. It looks like most of the drivers have aborted their lap time, apart from Odok Shelby, but he is going to run into traffic. It's been blocked by one of the Mercedes drivers. He's not going to be too happy with that because he was just 2/10 up. And just here, 2/10 already do make the difference between a P9 and a P7, so could go a couple of positions up. I'm not sure if he's going to continue his run or is going to abort it, because it definitely did cost him some time. We might see a stewards inquiry about that at the end of the race. Still seems to be going quite full throttle, so does want to complete this lap. Of course, we still don't know how much. Oh! Okay.
Well, I have no clue what I've just seen, but...
Well then.
Oh no, Shelby, to your provisional pole man, who's been given a 5-place grid penalty. I don't know if that will be kept or not, but I think Ghost is retired on track, I think, but the checkered flag is now full, and any laps being set now will be the final ones. I think Giggle did improve, but the thing is, his AI took control. Ridgeman is not going to be able to improve anymore. Funky's currently 61,000 off. I don't think O's just improved though either. Tucky into the Casio Triangle though, 74,000 second sector. Third sector, is it going to be enough to move him up a place? It will be into P2, front row of the grid, looking good so far. Then we're waiting for his teammate, 40,000 down. He's gonna box though, so we're waiting for their Nick. Goes into P3, 7,000 off Hooky. There's still more drivers to come across the line. Funky is one of them. Our current championship leader is only P5 at maximum, waiting for the birthday boy himself. Only P12, then we're waiting for Kington. He's down his lap time. So, qualifying is now over. Will Giggle keep his pole, or does he keep the 5-place grid penalty? I don't know.
I'm not entirely sure. If we look in the chat, I see, I'm so sorry, Giggle being mentioned. We saw the incident right on here on the stream. Giggle was not on the... almost crashing his car out there as we round up qualifying, but Giggle was not on the racing line. We saw Shelby trying to get some slipstreaming there, and I'm not sure if there was like some internet connection, but he moved to the side a little bit too late, which is what caused the incident. Of course, the stewards might have a different view of that, but this is how it looked like, at least from my point of view, and I don't think there's too much to blame for because of what Giggle did. Nonetheless, with the current standings, Giggle does have the pole position, but might be dropped down 5 positions because of that penalty. Then we have Hooky in P2, Nick P3, then it's Truth, Funky, and Rachman, so our championship contenders in row 3. Then it's Matthias, Ghost, Mason, or John, and Doc Shelby rounding off the top 10. And going on from P11 onwards, we find Giacomundo, Sharondar's our birthday boy, Jamie, Kington, Ols, and starting from last will be Jess because of that penalty.
Yeah. So it's going to be a tough one to be getting up the grid, but it's still possible from P16 on the grid to be getting, I would even say, a top 8.
It would be very nice for him to indeed pick up quite a few points here. As we're currently looking at the track, it's a little bit more cloudy than we saw during qualifying. Not sure if there will be any rain coming through, although we might see something more about that in the chat. What I have seen in the chat so far is that there won't be any restarts.
Yeah, no restart.
We'll have to see if anything is going to happen in the chat. And if not, then we will be getting ready for the race. That does give us, in the meantime, we do have a warm-up, so we will have some extra time to talk about the other things. I wish I could take you through the media nights, but I do have that on the wrong monitor, so I currently can't take you through the media nights and all the interviews. So in case that we do have a restart, I'll be taking you through there. Do you have anything else interesting to share with us, Ace?
I was going to say one thing. You were saying that loading in to the race, you can see the clouds. I hadn't even loaded in yet. I was so confused. Like, what did you mean? And I eventually loaded in.
And I can see a little bit of the clouds, but I think the drivers for now are still busy communicating about what happened in qualifying before we're going to see anything else. It still says that we are waiting for players, as you can see here, so we do still have some time to talk about what is going to happen and what has happened so far. We do still have quite some interesting races here on the calendar as well. As we now see the green lights for the warm-up lap, and it looks like the penalty is going to stay, which means that Giggle will be starting from P6, although there still is some chatting going on in the chat. Maybe we'll be able to jump in with that, but I will just keep our eyes on the race so far with our 16 drivers. So now Hookie and Nick will be lining up on the front row, Truth and Funky on second row, and with Rachman and Giggle on row 3. It sure means that we might see some interesting moves coming down in turn 1. See that Ace has left the session, so Ace will be coming back later on, which means that I'll be taking
sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We are still on the formation lap, so in about a minute and a half, we should be on our way with the drivers now making their way through the hairpin. We see our race strategies, and the second strategy seems to be the most important one because we do have the 2 mandatory pit stop rule here at One Hub Racing, so that means it is important for us as well to look at the tires that are going to be used today. I will get the telemetry disabled so you won't have to look at that. Most of the drivers will be starting on the soft compounds, 9 drivers in total. There'll be Hookie, Nick, Truth, Funky, Rachman, Giggle, Matthias, Ghost, and in 16th, Jess. All the other drivers, so from 9th up until 15th, will all be starting on the medium compound, so they'll be going for a little bit of a longer stint at the start. And yeah, we'll have to see if the hards are going to be used. I'm not entirely sure what the pace was for these drivers on hards when they were practicing. I haven't heard too much going on about that. What I did hear the drivers say is that they really liked the last races. They had some great battles there, and of course Fozzie Bear, who isn't here tonight, was very, very happy with his result being on the podium in Brazil. Drivers also mentioning, as we said, that it is very hard to drive here on the pad, on the game pad, perhaps the most difficult track out of the entire calendar, although we'll still have to see how everything is going to fare down in Vegas, as our drivers are now lining up at the start-finish grid, and we will soon see the lights come on. So the drivers now lining up, and now these disqualifications don't mean anything. And there we have it. The lights are coming on. 3, 4, 5 lights. And we are off. And it looks like the best start does come for Hookie. With Nick on the inside, might be trying to make a move into turn 1. But Hookie does have the faster line there and is going to keep his position there. Funky already on the inside of Truth, and he is going to take over P3 as the Red Bull driver has to fend off Giggle, with Rachman dropping back a little bit. So far, all of our drivers coming through safely, as we're going to have a little look at the position changes. It's only Doug Shelby who's lost quite a bit of positions here, already dropping down 4 positions, now currently in P14. And we already see Nick coming under heavy pressure from Funky. One of our drivers going a little bit wide into Deckner. That seems to be Truth, and Truth is falling down the order, and we have a yellow flag here in Sector 2. But apart from jumping all the way to the end of the field, I'm not sure if there is any damage involved. Let's have a look and see. As we see another one of the Mercedes drivers spinning up. That is Ols, not having his band run there. He seems to be stuck here again in the wall. Truth does not have any damage. And for Ols, it does look like he is missing a wing end plate, so he will have to come in for a stop. Not entirely sure what happened there, but we should definitely keep our eyes peeled up in front as Funky is amping up the heat towards Nick. Trying to get a better exit there as he wants to pass on the main street. Remember, DRS is not active yet, but he's already so close as he doesn't even want to try and go for a slipstream. Will have to come around the outside of turn 1 if he wants to overtake Nick here. This is always a very dangerous move to make, and as Nick braking just a tad later, not allowing Funky to come by. And now Funky will have to slot in behind for the S's, because there is no way that you can overtake here, unless of course a big mistake is being made. Ols has come into the pits in the meantime, as Strunders has made up quite a lot of positions, as we see Nick go very wide out of the Dunlop curve, dropping down 2 positions there, and immediately under pressure from Rachman, who also overtakes him. Not a great start of the second lap for Nick, and it does not look like he picked up any damage, but did touch the gravel there a little bit.
Yeah, no damage, thankfully, for him. But 3 positions lost could mean a race win potentially could be lost, as we see Oles jumping onto the hard compound tyres after having to pit on lap 1, possibly for damage. But yeah, it is for damage. I've just checked now. But we see the top 7 currently on the softs, 8 to 12 on the mediums, Truth on the softs, Odo Shelby mediums, and Jess also starting on the softs, wanting to get up to those positions early on to get the track position in general. It could be absolutely crucial to get the track position before your pit stop, especially if we get a safety car. Being held in the pits could mean race end, as I see Truth going pretty deep in towards Casio Triangle. Odog Shelby almost running into the back of him, wasn't able to go for a move just yet, but on to lap 3, DRS now enabled. Fields getting spread out, the top 7 staying in the DRS train, but Giacomundo, top 8, sorry, but Giacomundo has been able to fall out of it, unfortunately, by 2.2 seconds.
Yeah, the main battle seems to be commencing around the top 8, with interestingly to note Trunder setting the fastest lap time despite being on one set of harder compounds. Remember, this weekend we have the C3, C2 and C1 set of compounds, so the hardest compounds with us, with the medium being the C2 and the softs being the C3, as Jamie made up a couple positions, and it looks like Shelby has dropped down the order a little bit. Truth, after his mistake in lap 1, has made up quite a bit of positions too. He is now in P12, and Oles unfortunately quite far behind after the issues that happened, and of course the pit stop he had to take earlier on, and Giacomundo also picking up a 3-second time penalty, I believe, for track limits, as we are currently trying to look at Matthias, who is closing down the gap to Ghost.
I want to say that Giacomundo Pan is actually a double warning, because he's picked up 3 warnings on lap 2 alone. So unless he's pushed off wide or anything, I think that was a double or maybe even a triple warning, which potentially can be removed depending on how many warnings he gets towards the end of this race. But all we're hoping for now is clean battles out in front, as Nick has fallen 1.7 seconds behind the top 4. I've only just noticed Funky now has already made up 2 positions.
Funky having a real good race so far, and it looks like a lot of our drivers are really struggling at the Casio chicane, so Nick, Ghost and Matthias narrowly avoiding each other there, as they had some struggles coming out of that section. It indeed looks like the pads are not helping out whatsoever here on the track, and this has allowed Trunders to close the gap once again and try to come just that little bit closer, and he's now really trying to get close to Matthias. Although on the softer compounds it does look like Matthias has that extra bit of pace. In the meantime, as we move to the front, Funky has narrowed down the gap to Hooky to about 4/10, and we'll have to see if he is able to make it by.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm just keeping an eye on Ghost as well. He's closing in on Nick, but doesn't seem like enough at the moment. As I think someone behind was trying to go for a move. It was our birthday boy, Trunders, sitting at 10th behind. He's trying to go for it into the Casio Triangle. Can he hold on the grass slightly? But Matthias goes deep. His switchback could be on, but unfortunately he hasn't got the traction nailed perfectly. But with the DRS to his advantage, he's going for it, as well as that. Funky has got himself up into the lead, getting ahead of Hooky, who started on pole. He may not have qualified there, but he at least started on it. And now he's down to P2.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you were hoping for a good result for the birthday boy, and he does seem to have some great pace on those medium set of compounds. Still staying quite close to the drivers up ahead, almost spinning out though of the S-curves, famous Suzuka S-curves, as we mentioned before. Does keep it all the way on track, as Kinjin's now picked up a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings as well. We saw some position changes up on front, but the top 4 still within DRS range, almost within a second too, as the gaps are now widening a little bit, as we see, I think it's Kinjin driving a little bit slow in the first sector, a little bit of a spin there, losing quite a bit of time, and as he comes to the end of sector 1, looks like he's lost about 4 seconds there, so definitely a little mishaps that has happened there for him. As in the meantime, we move back to the front of the field as Hookie is closing up to Funky.
Yeah, he's within 0.2 of a second into the castle triangle. Maybe could go for it. He's trying it, forcing Funky to go deep, but a switchback could be his intention here. It's not close enough just yet, but his DRS down in towards turn 1 for his taking. Will he be able to hold on to it? He's going for it. No ERS being used, but Giggle is going to go for a 2 for 1, and he's got him into the lead again, but he's forced Hookie off wide with a little bit of contact on the rear, which forces Hookie down into towards P3 and Nick back into this train.
That was a very good move. Giggle coming out of nowhere there and going 3 wide. I'm not sure if enough room was left there for Hookie. But that will be something to discuss afterwards at the end of the race. In the meantime, Rachman and Truth come in for their pit stops. Rachman go with a fairly early stop in lap 6, but he was in 4th position. So we will have to see where the other drivers are going to come in or come out as soon as they make their pit stops. Would be important for us to see the tires as well. Also switch to hards, and we see Rachman has now switched to the medium set of compounds as Doc Shelby sets the fastest lap time with those, 1:31.0. And Nick has also tried to close down the gap a little bit to the drivers up front with that tossling happening there. It's also Ghost being extremely close to Nick, only 4/10 off for the time being.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see who's going to lose. Ghost is close. That rhymed. But he's just not close enough currently. He needs the DRS, but he also needs Nick to not be in DRS. As Hookie is pulled into pits, I think, and I'm going to hope it's not for a wing change, because that could potentially ruin the race for him. It doesn't seem like it, I think. That Hookie pit stop is just for a normal pit stop.
Okay, that is good to know. It does look like he tried to make a pit stop there to try and cover up Rachman. And we'll have to see if he comes out in front or behind Rachman. He just comes out behind Rachman, so Rachman has overtaken him with that pit stop sequence. That means that as soon as the other drivers come in, I think Rachman will be our new net leader. As we saw Nick go very wide into turn 1, allowing Ghost to go for that overtake. Giggle's still up front. Funky is about 6/10 down, so they are keeping within DRS range, but I think at the end of this lap 7 we'll see some more drivers come in, because the newer and fresher tires definitely seem to be quite a bit quicker, even if it's soft compared to mediums.
Yeah, the softs will start to die off now. Once you hit about 30%, you'll then start to feel the tire degrading on you, but once you hit roughly about 45, then it really hits you with your tire wear and your lap times start to deplete ever so slightly every lap. But that could mean anyone behind you who started on mediums or hards could have the advantage.
Right now we see Giggle come in together with Nick and Matthias. We're going to cover his pit stop, because we will be very curious to see where in the track he is going to come out at. We see the drivers come by the main straight now. The next driver that has to cross will be Rachman. And there we have Rachman coming in. It will be very close on pit exit, but it is Rachman who is going to take that net lead away from him. Of course, Giggle will have the 2-lap fresher set of compounds. And Rachman is not yet a second away yet, so we will have to pull some distance right now, as he is doing currently through the Suzuka S's. He will need to try and keep that distance if he doesn't want to come under attack later on.
Yeah, currently Hookie 6/10 behind, but Giggle 1.7 seconds behind, so no DRS for Giggle currently. So it's going to be a case of pushing on, but not wanting to run the tires up.
It looks like Giggle is still struggling a little bit on those medium set of compounds, because Hookie is already closing the gap towards Spoon Corner here. We'll have to take care that he doesn't come too close. It definitely looks like the tires are not warm yet for Giggle. He's dropped back already about 6-7 tenths to Rachman, although he now seems to be picking up the pace a little bit more as our race leader Funky and Ghost have come in, which I think is going to give Trunders at least a lead for the time being. So we will be able to say that he did lead a race on his birthday. That is also very nice to know. We had kind of a similar case last weekend because it was Sainz's birthday on Friday, I believe, and the day after he got his pole position. So it does look like the birthday factor is quite a big one, as we just see Funky come out of the pits and just come out ahead of Nick, so he'll be currently in P3.
Yeah, Sainz last weekend, not only did he top FP2, but he topped qualifying and then went on to lead a couple of laps. And if I'm right, I think he got 14 laps. He led 14 laps, which is the most led by any non-Red Bull car this season. Just tells you how dominant Red Bull were.
That is indeed a telltale sign. Of course, Sainz picked up his first podium of the season as well. Was able to take part in the Max Verstappen pre-race interviews, as it's now already being called. But of course, we will be focusing some more on the race as the gaps between Rachman, Giggle, and Hookie are decreasing. Only about 2 tenths behind one another. So Rachman really will have to look in his rearview mirrors, but it is Giggle with a lot more pace here, and we might even see an overtake coming up at the 130 Rs. He's already side by side, and I think already slightly ahead. He has already gone for the full overtake. Rachman immediately has to watch out for Hookie, but looks like Hookie backed off a little bit, so he is not going for the move yet. And with DRS coming into play, we perhaps might see some more switcheroos happening on the main straight. Rachman now picking up the DRS, trying to slipstream Giggle a little bit, but he's not using his ERS here wisely as well, because he's only 29% left. And Hookie with a very late dive, but a very clean move too, currently moving himself up in a net P2. That was a massive dive bomb, and a really good one.
Yeah, he just sand from Hookie, but you never know, it could be very good for him. I think Jacomundo's unfortunately spun on the exit of Spoon. Kingdon a 5-second time penalty for speeding into the pit lane just on that lap. Goes on to the soft compound tyres now though. But Hookie's move, you never know, it could lead to a race win.
This could indeed be a very, very important move for him, as he's now trying to stay within DRS range of Giggle, so he can make use of that later on in the race. Of course, now as we're approaching about half time, what you now just want to do is stay within that DRS train, try to make sure you have enough ERS left for that last lap, and then try and go for the overtake, and that hopefully is the way to win it, because you will want to be ahead of the pack at the end of turn 1, turn 2 in the final lap, because of course the DRS zone that you have on the main straight being the only one, that is where you want to make your overtake happen. And if you have enough ERS left to cover at the back straight, nobody should be coming by you anyways, as we see John and Jamie now coming for their pit stop. So it is the medium runners that are coming in, as we see Funky soar by Rachman on the main straight. So it looks like the earlier pit stop does mean that he has to concede a couple of places now, as the other tires are just that little bit fresher. Trundles is still staying out for the time being, the only driver without a pit stop so far. But of course the drivers will have to come in for 2 stops in total. But perhaps Trundles' strategy could come into play here later on in the race, as he can go for some softer compounds. But with him only having about a 6.6 second lead, I don't think he'll be battling too much for the front. As we see Truth as well starting to fall back a little bit more, currently in 8th position, but did recover quite well from his mistake in lap 1, so we might see him trying to move up the pack a little bit more, as Ghost and Nick have also disassociated themselves from the front pack, which is still formed by Rachman, Funky, Hookie, and Giggle.
Yeah, these 4 are just in a tier of their own. They're in in the P3 tier. Everyone else seems to be in 3.5 at the moment, which is also how IRL F1 just seems. You have a Max Verstappen tier, you've got a Checo tier, and then you've got everyone else. As Tonders finally does come in for his pit stop, getting on to another set of mediums for him, which would be looking to go potentially to the softs later on. But will it be the strategy perfected, as he does come out just behind Matthias and Truth in P9? So I think he's actually gained a place or two from where he was before the pit stops.
Yeah, currently coming out in P9, of course, will be on by far the freshest tires out of the entire pack of the field, as we see Hookie trying to close down the gap to Giggle a little bit. But what we've seen so far, it looks like the most ideal thing that you can do is a run with twice the mediums and 1 times the soft. The mediums lasting about 10 laps, and the softs then able to last 7 laps. So that makes 10, 10, 7, 27 laps in total. Seems to be ideal strategy. And we did see most of the soft runners come in around lap 6, 7, 8. 6, 7, or 8. And we saw our medium runners come in about lap 9, 10, and 11. So it looks like most of the drivers are trying to do that, as Funky is now really, really close to Hookie. Hookie also saving up ERS a little bit. We see that blinking light at the end, but it looks like Funky will want to get the best exit through the Casio triangle, but it looks like he has missed a little bit of time there, as Rachman has now also dropped back a little bit, and has now been overtaken by Nick. I think a slight mistake from Rachman there, because it was a lot closer to Funky at the start of the previous lap.
Yeah, Rachman made a mistake, but then again, Nick also went deep into the Casio triangle, which gave Rageman a switchback, but the thing is, Nick got the DRS from it.
And that does really show how powerful the DRS is here. But yet, with so many drivers, especially on the gamepad, struggling to come through the Casio triangle, and with the DRS zone being after that, it is such a key point for overtakes, and you really need to make sure that you get that exit down ride and that you absolutely nail it. In the meantime, we see throughout the lap that Hookie and Funky trying to close down to Giggle a little bit more at the earlier part of the track. So Sector 1, the first bit of Sector 2, they're coming a lot closer. Then towards Spoon, getting, well, normally a little bit further away, but now Hookie is within 4/10, so perhaps he could be getting very close up into the Casio triangle and then hopefully go for an overtaking move, but it looks like Giggle has used a little bit of his ERS to try and pull a gap. Hookie on very, very low ERS. Giggle also on about 20% only, and it's Funky who's been saving up quite a bit. He still has 73% left. He knows that it is a long game, so he is not using too much, but we now see the overtake come in. The overtake button was on. Giggle is now saving, and Hookie comes very, very close, but not able to go for an overtake either. And it looks like the drivers will want to stay put for the time being, so unless anything happens, we will see not too much action until the next pit stop sequence.
Very, very close between them. Yeah, getting very close between Hookie and Giggle through in towards, I want to say it is the Diagonals? Diagonal 1, Diagonal 2. I want to say I'm right. No, not that bit. The double right.
Double right.
I'm pretty sure.
Very good.
Yeah. Giacomundo was actually retired on track, I think.
Yeah, Giacomundo has
which
retired.
I think that caused some of the other drivers to have to slow down slightly.
Oh, Hookie having a massive moment there coming out of the second spoon. He was very, very close to Giggle, but now because of that, it looks like he will have to look more in his rear view mirrors rather than look ahead. Although Funky behind at about 5/10 is not too much of a danger to him. So far, most of the gaps in the field are fairly large, apart from the gap from John to Jamie, because that's only about 2/10, and Jamie wants to go for an overtake here. We see the drivers radically moving here on the long back string as they're now coming through 130R, but Jamie will look to close that gap towards John and go for a DRS overtake on the main straight. We have another yellow in sector 2. That must have been for Ols, although I don't think too much has happened there. But also out of the final corner. It looks like John actually got a much better exit there, and now goes with the overtake onto Jess. Jess not being able to counter. Jimmy trying to come very, very close to Jess as well. But for now, can't mount an overtake as we move back to the front of the pack to see what's happening there.
Yeah, safety car has been deployed. Why is that?
I'm not too sure. We did see one of our drivers come in, which was Dog Shelby.
I just wanted to say, yeah, Dog Shelby hitting the wall potentially because he's just going to change the front wing. I don't see any other reason that there could be a safety car out.
Yeah, I don't think either. So he must have clipped this wing coming into the pit straight, and because of the debris that we got a safety car. Nonetheless, this does throw everything overboard because we have about 12 laps left. Most of our drivers have already adhered to the tire rule that we have. You need to be on 2 different sets of compounds. So perhaps our drivers could come in now. Yeah, I think most of our drivers are going to come in anyways. But we'll have to see if they want to take a risk to go to mediums or if they want to take it easy and go for the hards. Remember, the mediums will last about 10 laps. But being behind the safety car, you will not get too much wear. So I think, yeah, Giggle is indeed going for the mediums. So that should
Funky's gone hards.
Funky's gone hards. Hookie's also in mediums. Nick's
on mediums.
Trundler stayed out. Well, of course, he only just went for a pit stop. And he will now be leading the pack.
Yeah. But the only problem is he's going to have another stop, though. But I'm pretty sure he's going to go the softs anyway, which potentially will be able to make it to the end if he can time it to perfection. Or, then again, another safety car could potentially happen. Obviously, we don't want it to happen. But for the entertainment purposes of a last lap shootout,
for that then it is definitely
sometimes we do.
That is very true. The other thing
sometimes we do.
The other thing we should consider, though, is if we get another late safety car, then all the drivers are going to switch to the soft set of compounds, even though that would be more beneficiary to Trunders because he still has to make his pit stop. He will not have a tire advantage here, so I don't think he'll be fighting for the lead later on in the race. But yeah, for the time being, I think Giggle has the best cards in hand. And now, yeah, because of the safety car session, means that the drivers are also able to restore all of that ERS that they have depleted before. And I don't see any major changes out on the standings, so I think that is pretty much equal. What does help a lot for Doc Shelby, Kingen, and Ols, they were quite far down and back behind the field. They are now able to close down the gaps, so they'll have some advantage of it. And Truth, of course, now no longer being about 8-9 seconds behind the pack either. So he also having, well, consider it luck, don't consider it luck, but it does help him out to try and make a bid to move himself further up and see if he can make anything work in the remainder of this race.
Yeah, definitely. You had said he's got the best cards in hand. I instantly thought poker. I have no clue why, but all I say is do not gamble, because that is you're playing with fate in reality if you do that. So all I advise is do not gamble if you have heard this.
You do have to be very careful with that, indeed, as the drivers are now making their way through turn 2. We're currently looking at the penalties that have been applied. So far 3 seconds for Rageman, Doc Shelby, and Kingen, as we just see Doc Shelby getting past Jess, but that is because Jess is currently in the pits. If you still have to make your pit stops, it's not a terrible idea to make your pit stop now, especially if you're down the back of the field. Although for Trunders, of course, he is not going to make a pit stop now. He will make one later and then switch to the soft. So perhaps lap 20, 21, he will go for that. We still have to wait for the drivers to reach the end of the safety car queue before we are going to resume. So with a little bit of luck, that will still happen this lap. Otherwise, we will do an extra lap behind these safety cars. Gives us a good time to look at the position changes. Giggle so far doing really good with that, making up 4 positions. Of course, Strunders made up 11, but he still has to make a pit stop. Truth losing 6 places, Jamie picking up 2, Jess also picking up 3 places there. But looks like the best race so far is for Giggle after that penalty in qualifying.
Yeah, definitely. But we're just waiting for Alls to catch up, and then we should be in on this lap, I'm guessing, because by the time he does catch up, which should be just hitting safety car, not safety car 2 line, sector 2 line. If we hit safety car line 2, we'd be after the pit lane.
That's true. We now see them come through Spoon, and it looks like Ols has closed that gap. So I think we'll be resuming now. It will still be a fairly close call, but if it is, we're going to see now. And indeed, it is safety car in this lap. So we're going to see 10 more laps of action right here at Suzuka. Let's move back to the front of the field where Trunders is keeping the pace at bay, and we should see the drivers on our way in a moment. And here they go. Trunders deciding to go for a quick move after the Casio triangle. Perhaps is the best moment considering the things that we mentioned before with the game pads and all. You want to go after the final few corners, the last chicane, and then go full out on Trolls. We see Ghost make a pit stop there.
It's a front wing change.
Front wing change. He must have picked up some damage then getting ready for the race, or perhaps picking up that damage right early on, but because the pit stop line is a little bit later, as we see... Oh, Hookie went for a
Hookie's
move.
rind. Nick got damage from that. I'm not too sure exactly what happened, but I think Hookie went too much on the power, and the traction just slipped out, making him lose the rear end. But Nick's got no end plate because of that. Either he's going to have to make another pit stop, or he's going to have to suffer with no left end plate for the rest of the race. I'm thinking he is going to pit though, because if you do get onto the softs, you can then proceed to push on and get the advantage of also potentially fastest lap. It may not be as many points as he currently gets, but it's still a point to your name. Yeah. When you do get it, even if you're inside that top 10 or outside it, there are 2 fastest lap points to be getting, I think, as well. Trunders is just trying to hold on to his current position, being P2 currently on 6-lap-old mediums versus 2-lap-old hards, or 3-lap-old not hards behind him now, with the overtake button on and the grip advantage. Funky could almost go for the move around the outside.
Yeah, Funky already trying to have any looks here. What happened the previous lap? I think Hookie tried to go for an overtake into the S's here, as we are at now, especially exactly this view. And that overtake going wrong, and that does ruin Nick's race quite a bit. He does have that front wing end play damage. He does not come in for a pits, so it looks like he will want to continue and try to finish the race and try to make out the most out of it. The problem that he does have is that the drivers behind him are on these soft set of compounds, apart from Truth. So as soon as Truth comes by, all the drivers behind him, the next 4 drivers, will be on softs. So it will be very hard to keep those at bay if he can't put or can't keep Truth behind him. In the meantime, though, Giggle has been able to put up a fairly substantial lead over Trunders. Funky hasn't gone by him yet. And the lead from Giggle to Trunders is currently 1.4 seconds. So Funky will have to come by Trunders as fast as possible, dispatch him, in order for any bid of still coming close to Giggle. But so far, Giggle has done some great moves after the restart. And Trunders comes in. Trunders comes in at the start of lap 20, so he will be switching to the soft set of compounds. That is the best move to make. You now see DRS has been re-enabled now after this safety car session. The gap from Giggle to Funky, 1.8 seconds. So he will have to look behind for Rachman. Rachman will still have a 3-second time penalty applied to the total lap time as soon as the race ends, as Hookie now is the holder of the fastest lap time. Hookie's currently in P13. Of course, after that incident that we saw earlier on after the safety car restart. And Trunder's currently about 7 seconds behind him, so he might be able to make up some places still. The main action seems to be happening for now with Doc Shelby and John, with Doc Shelby only being about 4 tenths behind. Or no, Nick and Truth are battling.
Being overtaken, yeah. I think it's still because that wing damage that Nick has. He's still got the pace, but he's limited on his turning. Because you see here, Spoon, he goes out wide basically every single time with no left armpit. Turning left will be very much hampered because, Truth, he's already got a 4.5 tenth gap.
Yeah, that is not going to help
which
him
is
out
dropping down, but he's still going to struggle majorly. So it's going to be a hard one to be able to pick up any more points. He's going to go for the overtake though towards turn 1. Truth letting him by with the DRS up, and he knew it wasn't a battle to be fighting as he had the overspeed down the straight. But especially through the S's here now, he is. My controller just doesn't have it. Give me 1 second. I will put the other one on.
That is all good as we see Truth coming very close towards the Suzuka S's. This is the section where Nick is going to lose the most amount of lap time because of that damage that he has gone. But of course, if he can play the game cleverly, as we just seen him do, he would be able to pick up, well, hopefully not lose too many places and go for a re-overtake at the main straight. If Truth doesn't get him there. And now same as the last lap, we now see Truth trying to go for the overtake here, but I think he's going to try and let Nick go here, because if he goes for the overtake on the main straight, that is a much safer move for him. Or even here, as Nick goes very wide through Spoon, Truth has already completed that overtaking move there. In the meantime, up on front, we saw Funky set the fastest lap time. But he has dropped back a little bit more to Giggle, so the gap now 1.9 seconds, as we do see Nick getting back ahead of Truth. But this is the thing that we spoke of. This is not where you want to be ahead, because now we have our DRS zone. Overtake is ready. DRS is ready. We know that Truth wants to go for the overtake here, but can he make it stick? Can he make it into turn 1? It will have to be a very lead diver. Rachman is DNF'd. Rachman has crashed out in corner 2, and we have a full safety car. This is what Trunders perhaps was waiting for, and he's immediately into the pits. This is some perfect timing from him. He does pick up 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane, but that should be removed almost straight away. But we are going to see a shootout of perhaps about 3 laps. Let's see what we can find.
What did I say?
Penalties.
What did I say?
You were very right with that indeed, and I think the best thing that Trunders can do now is go for an extra pit stop to try and remove that penalty. John O'Doc, Shelby, and Kingjin have time penalties as well. Those are for track limits. Trunders, if he makes the extra pit stop, waits the 5 seconds, he will get back on track. Only lose 1 position with that, so I think it's only fair that he does that, because seeing all the drivers going to pit right in front of him, he is not going to overtake any with them, with the gaps being as they are right now. But I think all of our drivers will be coming in for soft sets, which means that the drivers will be able to have a fair fight towards the end of the race, and also likely with full ERS, as we're going to be heading into the final few laps. I think the person that is going to dislike this the most is going to be Giggle, because he had a fairly substantial lead over Funky, and Giggle has not come in. Giggle is not going for a pits, and Funky is. What are the other drivers going to do? Matthias stays out, Nick stays out, Truth stays out, John stays out, Doc Shelby does come in, Jamie stays out, Jess stays out. Almost all the drivers are staying out. They don't want to take this risk of switching to the soft set of compounds. But I think considering what could be happening here, the move for a pit stop is actually a very good one. Although Funky will have to battle his way up front from 9th, but he's going to have fresh sets when the other sets are all dying, and he will have about 3 laps likely to go for overtakes. This is going to be an interesting strategy.
Very interesting, to say the least.
And Trunders has decided to stay out, so he does not want to remove his penalty. Does at least mean that he will stay ahead of Ghost. If that is the best thing that he can do, I am not sure. But perhaps he does not have any new set of soft tires left anymore. Does mean that we have only a few drivers on new tires. So Funky, Odok, Shelby, Ols, Trunders and Ghost. So 5 drivers on soft sets. And all the other drivers on either used mediums or used softs. That's kind of split between the drivers. I think we'll have to keep our main eye though on Funky, who is our championship leader. The driver that he's battling the most, Rachman, so his direct competitor, is out of the race. He crashed out. So if Funky gets a good position here and so good point score this weekend, he could open up a very big lead over Rachman, because his lead so far is 10 points. But if he does fastest lap and wins the race, he's going to extend his lead by quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just going to point something out very quickly. Giacomindo had actually said his console overheated, which is why he had to retire very quickly and it being on track. He would have gone to the pit lane, but by the time, his game probably would have crashed at that point. I've looked in the tier codes DMs, and Sharky's actually pulled out of the season, not just this week.
Okay, that is
so
also
it seems
very
like
good to know.
it seems like we're not able to have Sharky anymore, meaning Truth currently alone in the Red Bull, but I think that leaves, I want to say, 2 open positions now. For the P3 tier at least. Might even be one, might only be 1, but I think there's still people on the waiting list to be placed at the moment.
Well, hopefully we can see some new drivers come in for our new track that we're going to have next week. Next week we're going to be heading out to Las Vegas to see how our drivers can tackle that upside down piggy track. But for now, our focus will still be on Suzuka. We are on lap 24 of 27, currently behind the safety car. Safety car expected to go in at the end of this lap, meaning that we're going to have 3 full laps of racing with mixed strategies. The top 8 all out on used tires, and Funky, Odok, Shelby, Ols, Trunders, and Ghost out on fresh set of compounds. So Hookie definitely has to watch out there in P10, kind of being sandwiched between those drivers. And Kinjin, the first driver that is going to come under pressure of Funky. But the big question is, will there be enough time for Funky to make up all these places? Because he was in P2 when he pitted, and he will need to make up 7 positions if he wants to come back to the place where he was, and 8 if he wants to win the race here.
Yeah, but at the moment it only seems like, in reality, 6 positions, because 2 people have penalties ahead of him.
That is very true, so that is going to make his life a little bit easier, but because those drivers are a little bit further down the back, so 5th and 8th, means that he will have to dispatch those anyways, right on track if he wants to make a bit for the lead. Remember, Funky has not yet placed outside of the podium positions in our 4 previous races, so he'll be looking to continue that streak and keep that streak alive. Right here at Suzuka. He's got 3 laps to do it, and we're going to go on board with Funky for this restart, because I'm very, very curious to see what he can do here.
Yeah, Giggle leading them away, getting on the power now up to 100% throttle. He's got a bit of a gap though, but look behind him. Nick's trying to go for a move. The Truth is trying to follow him through. Nick up in the P2 with the wing damage still. Matthias, not okay, tries to get back in the P2, which he has got.
Yeah, in the meantime, we were on board with Funky, seeing that he had to drop out a little bit. I think he passed King Jing a little bit too early, so that means that is going to slow down his assault for the time being. As in the meantime, Truth is coming very, very close up behind that Ferrari, who's currently in P3. Has a little look inside there at Deckner. As they're now going to approach Airpin. I think Truth will want to go for a move here. He will try to send it down there, but decides against it, and it's now Funky has finally dispatched King Jin. That must have happened at the outside, or the exit of Deckner. As we see John dropping down a few positions, we have another caution there, and it looks to be for John, who is now back on track, but is all the way at the back of the field. Funky now still in 7th place, but that means that Jamie and Jess are now up in P5 and P6 respectively. And we have another AlphaTauri out of the track, that is Hookie. So Hookie involved with an incident there out at Spoon. A lot happening out on track there as the drivers are making their way through the 130R. When the Alpine of Tronders going a little bit wide there as they make their way through the Casio chicane. But so far, all the drivers are staying on track. Although he will have to watch out. King Jin has to watch out because Tronders is on his way. And he is going to slot himself up nicely. Little bit of contact as the Williams goes off. But no damage seems to be reported as King Jin almost drifts out there. But he will stay ahead of Ols for the time being, has now dropped back to P11. In the meantime, Funky very, very close to Jess, but out of the Dunlop curve, cannot make an overtake happen there yet. So perhaps at the hairpin, we'll try to have to make that move stick. But so far, his pursuit up towards the front of the field is not going too great.
Giggle and Nick also have 2 warnings currently to their name. Another one in the next 2 laps, and that podium could be gone for them.
Funky now being very, very close to Jess, but does go for that overtake round at the 200R. That straight does have a name to it, thankfully. He's now making his way out of Spoon. He will have to come within DRS range of Jamie if he wants to have any chances of still making it towards the podium. But with his ERS already almost depleted, it looks like that late stop that he made might not have been the best strategy after all. Now coming out of the Casio triangle, DRS of course had not been enabled yet. It will only be enabled for the last lap, but that is not going to matter because the finish line will be there before, well, around the same time that DRS activates. So he will have to do it all the way on his own, as although Shelby has dispatched Jess, moving her back into P8. As we're following Funky try to get closer to Jamie. Meanwhile, up more at front, Giggle has a healthy lead over Matthias. He has a healthy lead over Nick, and there with the move for Funky through the S's, getting past Jamie with a massive move here, and he will try to make another move here into Dagner, but this is very risky. It is almost impossible to go for an overtake here. He is looking for it, so perhaps Funky will have to try down at the hairpin. He is trying to go for it. We see some saving coming out from Truth, touching the grass there a little bit, but Funky so far can't get by, almost spinning his car out, but he's trying everything that he can to get back on that podium. But so far it seems to be too difficult for him.
It seems to be Giggle's day though. Down in towards 130R for one final time. Holding on to a 1.6 second gap. He needs to make sure he doesn't get a penalty here now. He doesn't pick up a warning, but the Casio Triangle could still be one place to get a warning. Hopefully he doesn't get one, and it seems like he hasn't. And across the line in Suzuka, it is Giggle to win here in the P3 tier. Matthias takes a P2 finish, but across the line it's going to be Nick getting it. P4 is Funky, and Truth running off the top 5.
And then we have our other drivers come through with a P6 for Jamie, 7th is Jess, then it's Gold Sadok Shelby. Trunder still picking out 1 point for his birthday race. As we see the other drivers rounded out with Olsen 11th, Hookie 12th, then it's Kingjin and Mason making out 14th here on track. And of course 2 drivers retiring, so that are Giacomundo and Rageman. And we see Funky wondering in chat Why no one pit after the last safety car? I think he was expecting everyone to go for a pit stop, but actually staying out was the best decision here. So I'll be very curious to see what the other drivers are going to say here, but I don't think it matters too much because Giggle had the great race here, did get the fastest lap time in quali, then got that 5th-place grid penalty. Whether that was fair or not could be disputed, but in the end, it all doesn't matter because he picks up the race win here from 6th as he wins the race here at Suzuka.
I remind you the top 12 score points.
You are right. Top 12 scores points, so Ols and Hookie are still picking up the extra points there, so Kingjin and Mason have not. But of course, the faster lap time for the two will see them pick up another point, which is going to be going to Mason because he was a little bit quicker than Kingjin. Fastest lap time at the front of the field is for Funky, so he'll be picking up an extra point with that. So from P4, his points plus the extra point, he is going to solidify his lead in the championship over Rachman, who of course has unfortunately crashed out. But I think Giggle will be mostly happy here because he managed to get that race win. As we see Funky, well, he went for an interesting strategy. He went from soft to medium to hard to soft, so he's used all of the compounds. Ols has done the same. The other drivers have gone for medium and softs mostly. And this is how our results end up.
Yeah, we also need to pick our drivers of the days, and I'm taking just as mine before you can take that.
Okay, fair enough. So,
and
yeah.
Richmond's changing his name again. It's now Bottomman 32 2.0.
Okay, fair enough. Well, he did make that mistake there, so of course that is not the greatest thing for him. When it comes down for me, who is the driver of the day, I think, to be fair, that can only be Giggle. Had the best performance in qualifying, having that very unfortunate penalty, which I don't think was all too fair, but nonetheless fighting his way through that penalty and ending up in the 1st place position. So he was very happy with that. And of course, my question is going to be about that incident in qualifying. Can you explain from your point of view what happened and your look on the outcome of that?
Yeah, and the one question I'd have for Jess, an engine penalty here today, and overall it's P7. Was strategy perfected because of the safety car, or did it change up slightly?
Alright, very, very good. Now, if we're going to look at the driver's press conference that I referred to earlier on, so what we were talking about, because we did have some words from Funky and Rachman prior to the race. So for Funky, the question was, you sit on top of the pile going into the next round of the championship. After the week break we've just had, have you thought of changing tactics at all, or is it just stay as consistent as possible? Who would you like to say is going to be your nearest challenger? And it was Funky saying that just stay as consistent as possible and score as many points as I can to stay in front. My biggest rival is definitely Rachman. It looks like it'll be a two-way fight for the championship between us, as it is indeed looking for the time being, and he is definitely staying consistent, picking up a 4th place there. And for Rachman, well, now a brilliant victory last time out in Hungary, which was propelled you right into championship contention. And how are you going to tackle the rest of the season to maximize this opportunity? He mentioned I'm going to tackle with a missing race in Japan, maybe. I don't know, to be honest. I like the game and the situation, but I don't know how it would end. Well, fortunately, we know how it would end with a wall at turn 2. Very unfortunate for him, as he's now, like you mentioned, renamed himself to Bottleman 32 2.0. Because it's not the first time that he's had a little bit of an incident causing him to lose a little bit of points, but still definitely up in championship contention there. As we look at the other things, what's mostly driver of the day's interviews from last time and the Pulse Races interviews, Jamie mentioned that last time around he didn't expect to be so close to the podium. John was very happy with a 6th place result last time around, and Fozzie Bear was very happy to be on the podium. Of course, he was not there tonight. And for Ols, he mentioned for this race, another legendary circuit with very technical corners. How are we feeling about going there and getting a good result? He mentioned did some practice and feeling confident in getting some more points. And he did pick up a couple of points there, so he was able to do so indeed. Fozzie Bear mentioned the tire degradation, that was for the previous race, so that is not anything to mention for the time being. Well, we had quite an exciting race, didn't we?
Yeah, definitely. And if you're wondering why I left for a second, imagine opening the emoji list and it crashes your Discord. I didn't realize it could do that.
Well, now we know. The more you know. Be very careful with your remotes next time around, guys. Although, be very curious to hear in the chat, who do you think your driver of the day is? We already mentioned that we thought it was either Jess or it's going to be Giggles, so votes are going to be coming out for that on Twitter later this week, so make sure to watch for that and put your votes out there. But you can also let us know in the chat now if you have any other opinions than us. In the meantime, we're looking at our calendar. As we mentioned before, next week we'll be going out to Las Vegas. First time that we're going to see a race there. Also going to see a sprint weekend there, so there's going to be a lot of action out there next week. And I must say, on one hand, I'm really looking forward to it because I'm not sure what to expect. On the other hand, I'm not too fond of the track either.
No. I'll be honest, I'm not that fond of it because I've unfortunately seen some of the issues with it. So, I'm hoping they don't happen. At least.
Well, we can only hope that they don't
happen. Hopefully the rest of the season turns out to be very well.
Indeed.
As we have 7 rounds left. If the championship is to be won before the final race, what race would you think it'd be at?
I think if we see the driver evolution so far, I think Rageman and Funky are going to keep some very close battles, unless one of the drivers bottles it a little bit, as we unfortunately saw today. But I think if Rageman can stay consistent enough, then we could see a fight all the way down to the States. But yeah, Funky has been so consistent so far. With only podiums and then a 4th place today. If he can keep that up, I think out in Silverstone he might be able to clinch that championship title. Of course, it's still very, very early to say though, and I think we should keep our eyes focused on next week in Las Vegas, because I'll be very curious to hear from the drivers what they think of that track, but of course we'll be covering that at the start of next race. I think for now that only leaves a word out for the sponsors before we're going to move along. So can you take us through, Ace?
Yeah, so our 4 sponsors here in OHR are Next Level Racing, providing 3 prizes. Pure Sim Gear will provide a pair of gloves or socks to one of the drivers. Aztec Sim Sports providing 2 prizes, a mystery shirt box, as well giving one of their shirt boxes to the winner of Cam's rankings. Will we see any more of our P3 tier drivers get into that top 20, or are we just going to keep that same stick that we've always had? But anyway, our partners then, Vespertine, are sponsoring our apparel. ERT, with the ERT going its top award in the league trophies, and then it's SimGrid, powering our seasons through their community and platform, where you see most of the info for the entire season being put onto there.
Very good. Yeah, as we mentioned, those are our sponsors. Next week, we're going to be back for Las Vegas, the first race out there. So the first time that we're going to get any sort of information and stats there. As we mentioned, the upside down picky track. Let's see who can tackle that blast and, take the port shop, I guess, for the win. For now, we've had our race here at Suzuka. A very eventful race, a very good race. And we'll be back next week out on YouTube, 6 p.m. British time, 7 p.m. European time for our next race, round 6 at Las Vegas. And we will see you there.